and
Wait,
I will be
hold on.
moving down.
Pause.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna have you repeat that because now it's recording. If anyone misses it, then they
Sure,
can
sure.
watch it still. Okay, so start from the top.
Yep. So my name is Kevin Kriege. I'm graduating from medical school at the end of the month. I will be starting my internal medicine residency at Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. My end goal would be to complete 2 fellowships, the first one in cardiology and the second one in electrophysiology, meaning the study of how the conduction system of the heart works, so arrhythmias. And I mean, people shouldn't have arrhythmias, but when they get them, they would see me. So I would do ablations and place pacemakers in people. That would be where I would like to be 8 years from now. So
All right,
I guess that's
gotta
kind of the
take
quick
notes.
intro.
A lot of words I don't know. A lot of words we're learning. Ablations. Although I'm out of space in my notebook, which is really quite tragic.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a little bit about where I'm at right now in training. And I actually knew your teacher at the University of Minnesota as well. And during that time, I was working at the Visible Heart Lab at the University of Minnesota, where a lot of the stuff that I did was working with medical devices and medical technology involving the heart. So a lot of pacemaker systems as well as ablation systems. So if you guys would like, I can talk a little bit more about some of that stuff. I can talk about really any interest you have about the heart. You know, it's something that I'm very passionate about and happy to supplement your education as best as I can. So.
Yeah, I'm curious.
What an
Awesome. So Jenna already
EKG
has
is.
some
I see.
questions.
I
Cool.
couldn't
Sweet.
see the entire question, but I did see
Okay.
you want to know
I
what
can
an
read 'em for
EKG
you.
is. Okay.
Yep, I have. She says she has to get one in a few weeks. I am kind of curious before we jump into that. How many of you have done the lesson? So like, where are we starting up from? I guess it doesn't really matter, but like the lessons on cardiology for this week, change of heart and knocked out are the 2 ones. Okay. Okay, so we have a little bit of we have pretty good background. I think we should understand how the heart circulates,
Okay.
how the blood circulates through the systemic and the pulmonary system. We should know the relationship between heart rate and blood pressure.
Okay.
And but all those things would be cool things to discuss too. They didn't go into the electrical system, so like pacemakers, like that would be a really neat topic to
Yeah.
talk
Okay.
about.
Maybe I'll get into that, and I think I'll try to tie it into the EKG question.
Perfect.
So I'll start out by saying an EKG is essentially a picture of your heart that's only looking at the electrical signals. So what you see is like this wavy line coming across, it goes up and down and kind of does that thing. Each one of those peaks represents a certain part of the contraction cycle. So you know the heart contracts and the atria contract first, so the top of the heart first, helps to push blood down into the ventricles. So fun fact, it only accounts for about 10% of the filling of the ventricles, the atrial contraction. So it starts up there, goes to the bundle of His, kind of in the center of the heart between the 2 ventricles. Like if you drew the heart as 4 chambers, it's right in that middle spot, where the lines intersect. Then it goes down between the ventricles. I'm talking about the electrical signal here. Goes down between the ventricles and comes back up. The biggest spike, the tallest spike where it goes up and then back down on an EKG, that is the ventricular contraction. The little bump that happens right before it is from your atria. And this is normally very regular. Does anybody know what your normal heart rate is? Your resting heart rate? A range? Do we cover it, or should I just tell them?
Yeah, someone maybe knows, but I don't think they covered it in the lesson.
Okay.
Oh, what is it, Jenna? You can shout it out if you want.
Yeah. I like interactive. It's fun.
Yeah, totally. Sometimes it's through the chat, and you can see the chat, but on your phone you can see the chat and the.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I can read it off too. It's like when your
Okay.
heart rate is when you're not moving or stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. And so normally in people that have that's between 60 and 100 beats per minute, that's considered the normal range. In somebody that's active or younger, it's not. Okay, I see a question about high blood pressure, low blood pressure. I'll come around to that in a minute here.
And I'll
So
keep track of
normal.
it too. Yeah.
Okay, normal resting rate is 60 to 100. A young or an active person can have heart rates down into the 40s, and that's still okay. But for the average American, they assume that you're not overly active and that you're middle-aged in your 30s to 50s. And so they say 60 to 100 is healthy. Above that, it's called tachycardia. And below 60 is called bradycardia. I'm giving you some of these words because you said you had an EKG coming up. I'm assuming everything's going to be just to go fantastic for you. Okay, what else about heart rate? So something that kind of fun about what you can see on an EKG is every little piece of that has information in it. The time between where the atria beat to when the ventricles contract is highly regulated. The height of the peaks is all very informative, as well as direction too. Like, is it going up first or down first? All these things can tell you if you have a heart attack, if you have any kind of electrical abnormality in your heart where you're not beating properly. So it gives your doctor a lot of information. But needing to get an EKG done doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your heart. That just means that they want to make sure that everything looks good. I worked with a pediatric cardiologist for a month, and I looked at probably 300 pediatric EKGs, and of those, I think I saw one that was abnormal. So it's not very common to have electrical abnormalities in younger people. And older people, the main reason why you end up with arrhythmias is heart attack is probably the leading cause, and then cardiac remodeling, which is your heart getting thicker, or generally thicker or bigger, like the chamber size is enlarging, but not necessarily getting stronger. And that's where I'll tie this into blood pressure. So if you don't have a heart attack, but you have high blood pressure, your heart will actually begin to thicken. So the chamber walls, in order to pump blood to the rest of your body, need to thicken so they can generate more force to get the blood to your body. So if you have a high blood pressure of, I'll say on the lower end of high, so 130, 140 as your systolic pressure, the top number, that's essentially saying, okay, now your heart has to lift extra weight, if you want to make a weightlifting analogy. So now your heart, just like any other muscle in your body, has to grow. Generally, the chamber size stays the same, but the wall thickness gets thicker. Where this becomes a problem is when people have this higher blood pressure for a long period of time. The wall gets so thick and it's not stretchy, you don't fill the chambers as well. And when you get older, much older, that can lead to heart failure, where your heart's pumping, but not enough blood is leaving your heart at one time. So I think something that's also kind of interesting about circulation, does anybody have any idea of why we even need circulation?
So that we could spread out oxygen everywhere and get rid of the carbon dioxide.
Yep, that's very good. So something that it took me a while to pick up on just the importance of having our circulation system came when I was in college, and they were talking about how there are animals, and I forget a good example, where they don't have blood vessels to carry the blood around the body. It's just their heart pumps it. They have some major vessels, and then it just kind of distributes throughout different sacs in their body and stuff to distribute the oxygen, carbon dioxide, and the nutrients. But what makes us and other mammals unique is that our circulatory system provides a efficient system to maintain pressure throughout your entire body, all the way out to your fingertips, where you can get blood exchanges of oxygen, carbon dioxide, and even like electrolytes like sodium, potassium, proteins. It could be jellyfish. Yeah, I think you might be right with that. And the real reason why, sponge, the real reason why you have a circulatory system and why ours works so well is something called diffusion, which you may have heard of in physics classes. And so diffusion is essentially the rate at which the oxygen, carbon dioxide, et cetera, can pass between your blood and your cells. Without your circulatory system and your heart rate to pump all these things throughout your body, the rate of diffusion would be so long that you couldn't get the proper nutrients out to, let's say, your fingers from your heart. It would just, it's not efficient. So we would not be as big as we are. Our brains wouldn't work the way they do. So if you want to take it back to its simplest root form of why we developed our circulatory system with the heart at its core, it's because of diffusion. Without the ability to transport things across our blood into a cell, there's no way that we could survive. So our bodies created these circulatory systems, and it's all because of physics that happens. So
wow, that's an amazing connection to, we learned about diffusion a couple units ago.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for bringing that up. That's a really cool connection.
Am I missing any questions here?
Let's see. My screen is frozen for some reason. But maybe someone else could shout it out if you can see a question. Yeah, and that's just to fill some space here. I think,
Sure.
I mean, that's a really cool connection with the animals not having, like, not all animals have circulatory systems. So what do you think is true about some of those animals? Like someone was saying jellyfish.
So they're generally smaller and less sophisticated organisms. You want to learn about right heart blood? Is that what I'm gathering?
Right heart
blood.
RH
minus blood actually means that you do not have any of the things that hold the blood cell together, and that means you could donate to everyone.
Okay, so RH is, so RH can be found on every blood cell. It's either there or it's not there, but it's RH, like, to simplify it as far as clinical importance. So what I think about when I see it is blood compatibility. So you can't mix like positive with negative, and you generally give it. It also matters for when you're having a baby, that mom and baby have the same RH factor. But other than that, to be perfectly honest, it's not something that I have to think about too often. So Holly might have a better, more well written out example. Do all mammals have similar hearts? Oh, I was reading another question.
Oh, cool. Yeah, go for it. We can go into that. I mean, it's a neat thing you can do a Punnett square about, because it's a trait that you would have passed down, like you're saying, from mother to baby. And yeah, blood compatibility. Like if you were to get a blood transfusion from someone else, like you're saying, you would want to make sure that you have the same compatible type of blood.
Right. I think that's a nice fun Punnett square, but I don't have that. I don't have paper with me, unless you want me to chop this tree down and turn it on paper in like 20 years.
Do it all, Kevin. Do it all.
My favorite type of blood, my favorite type of blood is my blood. I'm O negative. I love that.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so O negative,
I can give to everybody, but I can
give, huh?
I can only receive my own. So O negative is the universal donor, but you can only receive from O negative.
Okay.
Because my body would recognize anything that's positive and attack that, and O negative. So yeah, this gets into a whole nother conversation about you have antigens on your red blood cells that represent these AB, and O blood types, O having no antigens, but you have antibodies to A, B, and B. So you attack everything else that isn't you. So yeah, I think that's a better one to be drawn out as Punnett squares. I think it makes it easier to comprehend than me trying to verbally explain it.
Yeah, totally.
So I'll circle back a little bit to that comparative anatomy question. Comparative anatomy means what kind of cardiac anatomy is similar between species. And most mammals do have very similarly structured hearts. And so dogs, cats, even whales, elephants, all these creatures, they all have similarly structured hearts, being 4-chambered hearts. And honestly, I'm trying to think of, there has to be examples of non 4-chambered hearts. I'm not very familiar with those if they exist. So somebody else might know.
Yeah, fish. I think fish and birds don't. I think, or wait, birds maybe do, but fish don't.
I think birds still have a
where
heart
the blood
like
mixes
us,
in the middle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. However, so fun fact is dogs don't get heart attacks. Dogs have something called collateral circulation. So if they get a blockage in one of their major arteries of their heart, because your heart has blood vessels to feed itself, if they get a blockage in one of those, they have so many other little supporting arteries around it that they don't have a heart attack. They don't form scar. So a dog won't die of a heart attack. It can die of arrhythmias and it can die of other things, heart related, but not a heart attack.
Because there's other arteries to leave the heart, so like the blood won't ever like.
And they're so close to each other. There's so much overlap of the capillary beds on a dog's heart that they just don't get heart attacks. Whereas a human, like you have four major coronary arteries or heart arteries, and their patterns of blood distribution are so large, meaning there isn't a lot of overlap. You have a blockage in one, and that area, the watershed area below that, that's where you get the ischemia or the lack of oxygen, and the heart muscle could die or be stunned. And that's the danger for us humans. But it's called collateral circulation in other animals. But like sheep, cows, and pigs all have similar valves to humans. And so that's where if somebody needs a valve replacement, they have bioprosthetic, meaning from animals, you can get those valves from the animals and they'll work in humans. They just have to be at a certain age that the size matches and stuff like that, but they're structurally similar enough that they will work for a human. We also have mechanical valves too, which are pretty cool.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so that's like some of the work in the Visible Heart Lab is doing surgeries on pigs.
You don't know what that technology was. The artificial valves are bioprosthetic. The bioprosthetic, yes. So in your cardiac anatomy, you guys know that as your blood leaves the atria, either the left or the right, on the right side, it passes through the tricuspid valve. On the left side, going to your body, it passes through the mitral valve. So those valves are like little floppy leaflets, they call them. And they're found in all animals. They're kind of the gateway, the gatekeeper. So the blood doesn't flow backwards into your atria or back into your lungs or maybe back into like the rest of your body if it's on the right side. They're found in other animals. And so where the term bioprosthetic comes from, prosthetic, if you think about like a prosthetic leg, if somebody is an amputee, this is an implant that this person would get to replace a damaged valve. And the bio means that it comes from natural sources, whereas mechanical prosthetic valve is something that we manufacture in a warehouse somewhere. But the bioprosthetic, it comes from some other living organism, whether it be human. You can do that. You can do, like I said, the cow, the sheep, or the pig valve as well. They can use. So yeah, that's bioprosthetic, I guess is the easiest way to define that word. Do you have more questions about that? So one of the things I did in the lab that I did research in was I actually helped design some of these replacement valves and catheter systems. Oh. Hello?
What happened?
You have a question?
I had to go to a different computer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about. Yeah, it was just actually you asked which animal has two valves. Fish have two valves. Reptiles have three, and humans have four.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice. That's cool. Thank you. Very cool.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm on my phone, so I can't look these things up as I'm talking and pretend like I know. So thank you.
We have lots of other computers around.
Yes. So I get something that was on my mind while I was so before I got on the phone with you guys, I was running, and so I guess I'll touch a little bit on exercise physiology and try to explain why exercise is important for heart health and health. I'll focus on heart health. So exercise for your heart does two things. One, it helps to strengthen the muscle in a healthy way. So it builds up equally in strength. So it increases chamber size while increasing muscular fitness of the heart. So it helps you be more efficient in your pumping. But then also, I think probably its more important effect on your cardiovascular system is it will lower your blood pressure for several hours after exercise. And this is the whole time. So when you're strength training, there's a concept called time under tension. And time under tension essentially is the amount of work that your muscles need to do to lift something. So if you decrease the amount of work that your muscles are doing, it decreases the overall strain. And this is where exercise can help to lower high blood pressure if you have it, or keep your blood pressure lower. So I guess I'm bringing this up because someone had asked me about high blood pressure, and the exercise is a very key way that you can help maintain a lower blood pressure. So have you talked about the autonomic nervous system yet?
Really basically, not in any detail. Yeah.
Okay. So sympathetic means increased heart rate, increased blood pressure. I'm really simplifying this. And parasympathetic is decreased heart rate, decreased blood pressure. So exercise will also shift your body, especially the more and more you condition towards a parasympathetic higher rate. So you'll have more parasympathetic tone, it's called, which will keep your resting heart rate lower. It will also keep your blood pressure lower because it increases your resting hormones as well as the resting tone of your blood vessels, so that over time your body, like you live at both a lower heart rate and a lower blood pressure. And this is something that's very good for maintaining long-term health and preventing any kind of cardiovascular disease later in life too. So that's why the earlier you start, the longer you maintain some kind of healthy exercise regimen, the better off your cardiovascular system is going to be. So instead of me just saying, they recommend 30 minutes of exercise a day, any amount of exercise is helpful. 30 minutes is a great amount to do if that's what you have time for. But even if it's I mowed the lawn for 15 minutes, all these things do help. And I guess I just want to champion exercise with everybody because it's such a important way to maintain your overall state of health. It's going to help so many other things, and not just your heart or cardiovascular system. So I just really encourage everybody to find some kind of activity that makes you feel good, and you'll thank yourself later for it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and even, I think sometimes it can be stressful to be like, oh, I have to go out and exercise. It's this chore that you have to do. But look at you, you're out in this beautiful area. I was just playing ultimate frisbee with some friends, and I was like, whoa, this is super fun. Yeah, Jenna,
riding your bike is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. anything you can think of that gets you active. You're not sitting. So even if it's a standing desk, whatever it is, just any kind of small improvements or small changes from sitting. You don't want to sit. And I read an article last week about 90 minutes of sitting is equivalent to like eating a candy bar, they were trying to say. So just moving, any kind of movement is healthy. So
that's interesting.
Yes, you just spinning out around your room is better than you lying in your bed and, you know, watching your computer screen. So moving, just keep moving. Your body will thank you. Keep it simple. That's my defining way I live my life, is keep it simple. The more you try to complicate things and the more you overthink things, the harder it is to try to break into doing something that's really honestly easy for you to do. Just stand up every now and then, move around, walk around the house, do a flight of stairs, whatever it is. That's all activity needs to be. Simple. And then like if you can't do like regular exercise where, you know, what most people would think of, oh, that's perks of online school. There you go. Yes, you are free to roam around your room, move around, be active. Yes, it's very good. But I also like to apply that keep it simple for everything throughout school, everything like that. Great. Runs are fantastic. I just went for my run today too. But like every science class I ever took, I was like, okay, if I try to memorize every single value on the periodic table, I'll be wasting my time. So, you know, I memorize patterns, and this is the whole idea of keeping it simple. Same thing with the heart. I can't tell you how many days I spent explaining everything about the cardiac physiology to my friends during medical school. And, you know, I'd sit there for hours and hours, and they'd get so wrapped up on, oh, what's this myocyte do? And it never would show up on a test. Doing exercise while studying is great. I like to just have a light walk while I study. If I can get to a treadmill and passively learn something at the same time, I listen to podcasts that are educational all the time.
I think there's something also about like the moving connects events to the information. So when I do my DBAs with all of you, I remember them better when I'm out being active, like in a particular spot. Like Owen, I remember a DBA with you because I was like out next to a river and we were talking about water. And like I remember that conversation like very vividly because I was out like doing that. And like Jenna, I was like out in the desert when I was talking to you one time anyway. But I think that's a pretty cool way to remember stuff.
Yeah. So I realized that I guess I'd want to kind of touch on the cardiac electrical system of the heart just really quick, because I think there's three main pieces to it, and I think that it's easy information. So
cool.
So I'm going to just say the SA node, sinoatrial node, or the sinus spot node means spot, is at the top of the right atrium. So that's where all of your cardiac cycle should start. So when your heart starts to contract, it's very organized, and it comes from this SA node. Goes from the SA node down to the AV node, or the atrial ventricular node, which tells you right where it is. It's between the atria and the ventricles. How do you get between the atria and ventricles, or how do you know where it's located? It's between all of them, so it's in the middle. So again, draw that little 4-chamber heart cross, and it's right in the middle there, just to keep it simple. Again, from there, it goes right down the middle between the two ventricles and comes back up on the ventricles. They all have their own ability to generate a heart rate. So the SA node is the fastest at 60 to 100. Then it's the AV node, which is 50 to 80. Then it's called the bundle of His, and the Purkinje system is the cardiac electrical conduction system. And that has a rate between 20 and 60. So your heart is very unique in that it's the fastest. Your heart rate is set by the fastest pacemaker cell. And this is where arrhythmias can start, because if all of a sudden you have this random cell, because all cardiac cells can be pacemakers, if you have a random cardiac cell that says, well, I want to beat at 120, now your heart rate's 120. And this is where ablations come in. You can do something called cardiac mapping, which is an invasive procedure, but they can find which cell is doing that. And then you go in and you burn it or you freeze it. And then you can get rid of these things. So trying to say it as simple as possible, not to confuse people, but I realize this is, so cardiac electrophysiology is a very nerdy and heady topic. So I don't want to totally derail people.
They'll it's so funny, to say a bundle of His, you're like, whoa, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
But on a baseline here, I think it's neat to connect this at a a sociological level. If you think of your heart as a big team, any one of those team members could be in charge, but it's easier to tell one bundle or one group of cells, you guys are the ones running the show. So think about even when we're going to Mars, you have a commander. Probably any astronaut could have been the commander, but you had to choose one person to be we're going to call the shot. This is the person that's ultimately going to call the shots. That's cool.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way of saying it. And then you have your chain of command to get it to everybody else. And that's your conduction system. So, yeah.
Cool. And then, you could put in an artificial pacemaker, which would basically keep the beats.
Yep. You put it at a rate higher than the other cells. The term that they don't need to know, but it's called overdrive suppression. So you just pace it at the faster than the current fastest beating cell in the heart, and that'll maintain your heart rate. So yeah, and yeah.
Wow. So I hope that you all see that there's so many so many different paths you can go into. You can go all into the capillaries of this information. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Anybody have any questions? I will try to send you, I have some videos that I can find from the Visible Heart Lab website that will actually show the heart beating from inside of the heart with the clear blood in the heart. So you can see the valves, you can see what atrial fibrillation looks like, as well as just regular contraction. And so, you guys can see what some of these things actually look like. And some of these are real human hearts. Most of them are pig, but some of them are real human hearts.
Can you tell the difference?
Someone
can.
To be honest, so only if you saw the outside of it. The inside, you wouldn't know. The outside, there's a slightly different pattern of the blood vessels, and the valve shape is a little bit different, but that's a highly technical PhD thesis paper on comparative anatomy and really getting into the nitty gritty, where even I don't need to know that at this point. So, totally. But cool. I can send you those links so that you can share.
Yeah, I would love to share those all.
Any last minute questions from anybody on anything? It can be career related, it can be cardiac related, anything.
What do you recommend eating?
What do I recommend eating?
Thai food.
Thai food.
The important questions. The important questions here.
That's the next.
That's very good.
It would be a big one for the next Zoom call, because actually we had a really great conversation when we just went out to dinner in Moab, and yeah.
So I'm gonna kind of stay in the same vein with my keep it simple of everything in moderation is okay. There's never been a single paper out there that has said you can't have carbs, you can't have fat, you can't have protein. I think that diets like keto comes to mind, or Atkins, where it's no carbs or it's only fats and all these things like that. I think it can be done, but it's a very challenging way to eat. I don't think that there's any particular food that's necessarily better than another. However, I will say that your whole foods, less processed things. So, anything that essentially gets manufactured, even if you think about cereal has to get manufactured. They grind up the grain, they probably bleach it and do other things to it. It wouldn't be as nutritionally beneficial to you is just plain oatmeal, where all they do is roll it flat and then you get it. So keeping your food simple too. And when it comes to fruits and veggies, more veggies than fruit, but both. And I like to have, so what I do for meals at this point is some kind of lean meat. So like chicken, fish are really good. Yep. And fruit is so tasty. I was going to say, I have my lean meat, I have my salad, and veggies, like peppers I love, olives, those things. And then I have some fruit for dessert. Yep, they're fantastic. So yes, fruit and vegetables, and then keep your meats lean. And I think that's the simplest way to go. And don't eat until you're painfully full. Just eat until you feel like you've nourished yourself. And I think that's the other thing that I think we as Americans really struggle with is food is so readily available to us and comparatively cheap that we make these giant meals and think that we have to finish our plates and think that we have to eat everything that we buy and not save it for leftovers the next day, or something like that. So I think just like eating the amount of food that you need to maintain yourself. And I think it's more when you get towards my age where you're done growing, that it's eating to maintain a weight and finding what that balance is for you. I think while you're developing, you have a little bit higher caloric needs. And so you just have to find what it is. If you feel that you're growing too quickly, and not in ways that you like, then you know that you just need to eat a little bit smaller portion. And I think, and increase exercise, but diet is 80% of fitness. Exercise is only about 20%. So you still need to do the exercise to maintain your cardiovascular health. But as far as the way you look, the way you feel, all of that, it really comes back to food. So keep it simple, eat to what you need, not in excess, moderation, moderation, moderation. Fruits and veggies, lots of veggies. They're good.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. This is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to help. Thank you. If anybody has questions, just send them to Holly and she'll get them to me, and I'll do my best to get back to you guys.
Sounds good. Awesome. I'll have a good rest of your run. Tell the horse.
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Yep. You're welcome. Bye. I'm going to leave.
Okay, bye.